See if we can get this thing sighted in.
Yeah, put her on paper, boss. Put her on paper. I got you.
Everyone, we're back for a FUD blaster. And here we've got a totally not North Korea.
Oh, don't think, guys. Asian contract.
Yeah.
FUD blasters.
So these came onto the market a little while ago, and what they are is they're North Korean Type 68s that made their way most likely to Iran a long time ago, and have then been held in some other country for long enough of a time where they became importable. And because they are North Korean origin, everyone thinks that that's like somehow illegal.
Right.
And that's because people, you know, as is very common in our space, people think they understand.
And people like to think they're getting away with something, right? Yeah. Where it's like, ooh, not touching you. Yeah. Asian contract. How many Asian countries made AKs?
Yeah, and especially ones that look quite like this. It's really strange because the company that brought these in sold them quite openly. They were the importer. They filed the forms to get these, and they disclosed the country of origin. So I don't know why they started doing that, you know, using this whole Asian contract name, but
it may even be because they didn't want to get the emails, because anytime you sell something interesting, somebody will email and go, is that even legal? That's illegal. Can you prove me that legal?
Yeah, no, that's something that I've recently been dealing with. Somebody was talking about buying a you know, select fire lower parts kit, and it's like, yeah, that's totally fine. If you try to use it, you know, you'll have a problem without proper licensure, but you can just have one. And their response to that was, well, show me where it says that's legal. To which I give my usual response of, okay, you're right. Show me where it says I can wear a blue shirt. No, it is not illegal, but that's beside the point. And also I was like, look online and see how many multi-million-dollar companies are selling these products. To which the response was, right, but I can get a you know, a Switch off of Temu. And it's like, what country are they from? But I'm starting to get into FUD Busters territory. But we're here to talk about the gun. And the big thing that we had noticed is that a bunch of people bought these kits, right? They sold out every time they came in.
Like within minutes, right? Yeah. Like batches of 500 would go up and gone in a minute. Because people were excited for the naughty AK. Ooh.
Right. And it's certainly an interesting gun.
Yep.
But no one actually talked about shooting them.
There was like a couple of pictures of people who got theirs built by, you know, professional builders or these sorts of things, but there wasn't really a lot of like, in fact, I think to date, I don't think I've seen a picture of somebody who built one from these kits, you know, building up. These kits were cheap when they came in.
Right.
And part of that is because the price is reflective of not just the original build quality, but then the degraded quality they find themselves in, where a lot of them had dust covers that looked like they've been used as hammers, and dust cover, frankly, just isn't a very good hammer.
Right.
Just so, you know, cracked handguards were all over the place, wood that looked like it had maybe been sanded down 10 times too many, but, you know, just generally shoddy, you know, quality of the parts as they stood, but not that the parts were ever particularly good quality whenever they sort of like left the factory.
Yeah, these are that. Everything kind of fits together in that way. But that said, it is mostly AKM-like.
Right, it's AKM pattern, but maybe with an asterisk where it was supposed to be AKM pattern.
Yeah.
Like with a lot of things that are, you know, AKM pattern, rear rivets and trunnions can differ. This one is unique in both regards. Right. Unique rear rivets, unique rear trunnion. There's other parts of it, like, you know, there's holes that usually line up or holes that are usually drilled a certain particular way that on this gun they just weren't.
Right.
Like the trunnion holes are, you know, I know some people have talked about, sometimes you'll run into trunnion holes that don't line up or they're just slightly off. These trunnion holes were hilariously off compared to Romanian, Bulgarian, Russian.
The AKM standard, right? And so you can buy pre-drilled AKM receivers And
most of the time they'll just drop together.
yeah, Romanian, Polish, Hungarian, Russian, like Eastern, and they all just go together. And this did not, right? So there's a lot of, as an AK weirdo and collector, it was very interesting, to me at least. But again, no one really reported their experience shooting them, and I wonder why that is. Do you have any ideas?
I guess just because it needed to be built in order for people to talk about it, and then the people who usually talk about guns on the internet, a lot of times don't build them, and that it's one of those things where you'd have to have it put together, and
yeah, that takes, especially when nothing is standard.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing: there are no lines on this gun that are parallel.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about this was it was more challenging than any other AK that we've built together to build, because nothing, the sight base isn't straight. We'll look at it later, but it's machined all sorts of crooked. So as we were building this gun, usually you can put it back together, the way it was originally built, you just put it back together that way with a few minor adjustments to make things fit tighter or be a little bit more robust. But with this gun, that wasn't possible, because the way it was built in the first place would make it like almost impossible to zero. In fact, the front sight originally from this kit was like moved all the way over, and they bent the front sight post to get it to zero.
Yeah, it was fully bent. The sight was tweaked to the degree that people say that Wassers are, moved all the way over, and then bent.
Yeah, bent the post to get that last little bit of now it's zeroed.
Yeah, and the rear sight, it's fascinating because these features here are the most critical, right?
Yep.
That's what your rear sight rides against, and that's what sets the parallelness of your rear sight. And they are entirely different from one another.
Yep.
Like not gun to gun. This one is not the same as this one.
Yep. And it almost looks like they were machined by a Dremel tool or attacked by a file at some point to try and correct it, and they didn't do that.
The other thing is you can see it's a straight line.
Yep.
This should, the way the math works out as you go out in range.
Ordinarily, that's a ramp, but they more or less just machined a straight line. So there's a lot of simplifications that went on in this gun, as well as a couple of interesting strengthening changes.
Yes.
So the front trunnion on this gun is a little thicker. On the the weaker side of the trunnion is the right side trunnion. That's usually
let's
where you
grab the other. You want to grab the other kit?
Yep.
We did forget that. Right. So the front trunnion on an AKM is the most important part.
Yep.
It's the heart of the action. And there's two things that are really critical here. One is your locking lugs. You have one here that's traditionally the weaker locking lug, and then the stronger one up here on top. This is where a lot of cast and US-made AKs wind up failing, and this can result in an unsafe situation. So that's super important. The other thing is that these lugs are not straight. This is not something that you can just come in with a key seat cutter and rotate out. They're helical. So the bolt actually, in very much layman's terms, the bolt actually screws it in to headspace. So those are really important things, and that's something I always look for first when I'm messing around with, considering building an AK. But there was something just completely different about this one that at first made me shocked, but then the more I thought about it, I was like, all right. Why don't you show that to us?
So traditionally on an AK trunnion,
Get your pointer tool.
as mentioned, the right side is usually weaker. The left side, of course, is stronger because the locking isn't down here on the left side. The locking's up here on this huge chunk of metal, and that's usually that chunky. Usually the right-hand side of the trunnion, though, that web down here is usually about this thick, the same thickness we see over here. The North Koreans, though, probably for reasons of they had trunnions fail earlier on, using subpar materials, and to be honest, they may not have even been forging these. They could have. It's possible to get away with cast AK trunnions.
I've heard from some people who know. They don't know everything, but they have a lot of experience in the Asian firearms market, and they assure me that the North Koreans were casting these trunnions.
Which wouldn't surprise me, right? It is possible to do with proper heat treating and approach, and maybe some amount of testing.
No, and probably not in 1968,
right?
But probably later on. But anyway, as you go on,
and the thing that cast trunnions typically fail is, sometimes they split in half when you press the barrel into them, but usually the area they fail is this thin web, because the bolt is locking against that lug right there, and that lug is trying to be ripped backwards. Now you'll see the bullet guide may make you think that lug is attached to the trunnion pretty securely, but it's not. That bullet guide is not a structural part of the trunnion.
In fact, it's riveted separately.
And so the only thing holding this lug onto the trunnion is this web of material. And normally it's about that thick. The North Koreans thickened that up substantially.
On one side.
On the weaker side. And then they made it so that the rivet here, ordinarily you have a rivet head like this on a wall that thick. However, the rivet that holds it into the trunnion, which corresponds to that rivet right there, that rivet is now a countersunk head on this side that is ground flush.
Yep.
Frankly, I think that's not only slick, I think that's smart. Because it's a known thing, especially if you decrease the quality of materials, the AK reveals its secret to you. This is the weakest part of the entire gun.
Yeah, so just so you guys know, I have a collection of exploded AK trunnions, and most of them are just completely disintegrated right here. Just like right at the locking lug, it just shoots off. I have one where both sides shot off, and I really want to know what happened there. But this is the most common thing where you'll get essentially a fracture that probably starts here. And then once that fracture starts, it probably gets you maybe one round before this whole side of the trunnion from here on shoots off the gun. This makes it
substantially, it's about twice as thick. It's probably like 80% thicker.
Probably as strong as the strong lug.
Yep. It's certainly a big improvement regardless of how the numbers shake out. It's going to help in a substantial way.
Yes. And so that is really slick, and I can tell you the reason the other countries that were making AKs weren't doing that. And a lot of people think, and looking at here from the top, you can see the difference. It's almost goofy, right? But the AK is, nowadays we build weapons to a safety factor of like 3, right?
In an ideal world.
Minimum 2. And that means if whatever force is going to be applied to a part, ordinarily, you build it to withstand twice that force. That's a safety factor of 2. The AK, as the Russians designed it, is like, what, 1.1
or 1.2? It's really low, right? It's enough to do a proof load safely. A steady diet of proof loads may not be a good idea. Where some guns you can feed a steady diet of proof loads, and they will be okay.
Yep.
Examples of this include, well, not cleanly the high power, but 9 NATO is almost a proof load compared to the 9mm that existed at the time the high power was designed.
Right.
And high powers will eventually beat themselves to death, but that's not unsafe failure, right? They're not going to start shearing lugs apart or cracking slides in half.
Right. It's going to tell you as it fails.
Right.
Yeah.
So some guns are designed to handle that. Not all of them are, though. And the AK is sort of a borderline thing where the thing that's keeping you safe at that, of course, that's looking at raw numbers, assuming peak bolt thrust is seen by both lugs at the same time, which won't be the case because the case sealing itself into the chamber actually reduces bolt thrust in a pretty substantial way. But in a worst case scenario, the AK Trunnion is barely safe with a highly lubricated case and a highly lubricated clean chamber.
Right. Yeah. And so it's kind of funny that almost everyone is wrong about everything they say about every gun. Because, there's this, the AK is completely bulletproof, this and that. In reality, it's like on the ragged edge, it was just designed well.
Which is why even with forged trunnions that aren't the right material or right heat treat, it cracks. Make a trunnion too hard, right? The trunnion's too strong. What does it do? It cracks.
Cracks sooner.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the AK's trunnion, not only just the heart of the action, but perhaps even the linchpin, where it needs to be done right. And I think thickening that lug is a step towards doing that more right. If you're going to take a little bit more weight in your AK somewhere, this is smarter than a bulge trunnion, I'd say.
15 grams there is not a bad idea. Because the bulge trunnion doesn't really, it only translates down to halfway through the stem of the lug.
Right. So does it help? Yes, but probably if you ran the numbers, not my guess would be, my intuition, not as much as this does.
Right. I think I tend to agree. And so why wouldn't they have done it? Well, because it was working fine. And this is it complicates
manufacturing.
This is necessarily a hand finish.
Yeah, because you're not just shooting rivets anymore. You're shooting rivets and then grinding them inside of a mag well.
Yeah. So on the other side, this is a chunk, right, and it's done. The other side, I guess you call it female side of your rivet tool, has the shape that's to be imparted onto the rivet. Chunk, it's done. You move on. With this, it's chunk, and then it's going to.
Of course, they could have got around that. I doubt they did this,
But no, look at it.
if they used a counter, no, they certainly didn't do that because there are grinder marks on here. But if they had taken a countersunk head rivet and put it into the countersink on this side of the trunnion, and then just use a round forming head on the other side, that's not. I mean, I think that's a pretty slick way to do it. They didn't do it that way though.
Yeah, they did not. Well, let's going on with the trunnion. If you're an AK nerd, you've heard about, you know, people whine about rivets, right?
Yep.
Like, you know, about the fingernail. Oh, you can't do the big in this card, right? Like people, and to those of you who don't have this crippling disease, people will freak out if you can get your fingernail under a rivet head. This one you cannot get under any of them. We won't talk about the trigger guard, but there's some merit to that, and it's because rivets are like, that's the whole accuracy of your gun.
Not even just accuracy, but, you know, again, longevity to it, where a rivet that doesn't have movement will sort of behave like a welded joint, right?
Yes.
Not exactly, but close to that. A rivet that has movement will, you know, it'll wear out the rivet really quick. It'll wear out the receiver really quick. It won't wear out the trunnion really quick because it's harder. It's harder than every other part of that joint. But, you know, rivets that are loose will become looser quickly. Rivets that are tight, they won't. You know, there's in fact, you know, testament to this. Battlefield Vegas has talked about 50, 60,000 rounds without a rivet coming loose. But once a rivet comes loose, it's becoming more and more loose, and then it's going to encourage the other rivets to become loose, and the whole gun's going to be falling apart before too long.
Right.
So, you know, the rivets being done properly is important, and, you know, for those unfamiliar, right, the idea behind a rivet is, instead of a screw that screws into threads, because then it requires you cut threads, and that's hard, instead of a weld, which has all sorts of, a litany of problems, like it's hard to inspect, and it's not, you know, it's a very rigid joint.
Right.
And sometimes
excessively so.
AKs don't actually need flex. It's sort of a nonsense, misunderstood thing, right? Because milled AKs work great, and guess what? Their trunnions don't flex because they don't got them. Their trunnions are welded in, basically. Welded at the time of manufacture.
They were welded in at the forge.
Right. But having rivets hold things together is a cheaper way to do more or less what a fastener is doing, but it's not removable. So when a rivet goes through, it's got one head that's known as the default head, right? There's different terms for it, but it's your given head, right? Your preformed head, and the other side will be called the shopped head or the formed head, because you're doing it in a shop or forming it.
Yeah. And that side is just a shaft. It's basically, and so for those of you who don't know how a rivet works, and it can be confusing because most people's experiences with pop rivets, which are a manufactured thing that you put into a hole, and there's kind of a ball bearing on the other side, and you yank on a rod and it pulls up the ball and deforms some aluminum or sometimes steel. That's a type of rivet. The original rivet, a real rivet, is just a solid piece of material.
In fact, plastic. You know, the original ones is just a round rod that you heat up and you just deform both ends.
Just squish them, right? And so that's the idea, is instead of screwing together, you're taking one solid and deforming it together to, like you said, it's almost like welding a joint, because there's now theoretically material full throughout the cross section. So riveting, all that to say, riveting in the front trunnion, the most important, the heart of the gun, very important.
Yep.
The way that the Russian construction manuals say to do this is to install the trunnion into the receiver, install all of the rivets first, right? And so that enables you to put a tool into this barrel journal, insert your rivet from the outside, back up against the inside of the rivet, and ensure that it is completely flush, completely flattened on both sides. So you've got force on both sides to get you that completely flat joint.
There exists another way.
There's another way. And we have a very good friend who thinks that this is the way to do it. And so what that is you put, pretend this is an AK barrel. You put your barrel in, and then you're like, well, that's a nice hard surface on the other side. And then you just put a straight rivet, take your forming head on the outside and go whomp, and wash your hands.
So you shove, instead of shoving the barrel against a tool meant to form a flat on the rivet, as you can sort of see there, they push the rivet against the barrel itself. If you have extra long rivets, this can give you a decent joint, but the problem is there's enough of a gap between the barrel in the inside of the trunnion, right? Because of course the barrel has to press through the trunnion, so it's not going to be a perfect fit there. That rivet doesn't want to flow. The rivet flows before it starts to compress.
Yes.
And because it flows first, you're going to have the rivet pressing against the barrel, and then eventually back against the trunnion. But what you need is the trunnion pinched against the receiver.
Yes.
You don't need the receiver pinched against the barrel.
Think about it as if it was like a banana, right? Think about the way a banana would, a peeled banana would flow out. We want a fully compressed banana like this, right? When you put it into the barrel, it's going to flow out like that around the barrel.
Yep.
And as this flows out, it's going to get resistance, and that's going to get transmitted up into the head, and then the head is going to get resistance and set on the top. What you're not going to have is that perfect sandwich on the backside.
Yep.
It seems the North Koreans also believed this was the way to do it for some of them.
Yep.
And the way we can see this is if we look inside this trunnion, the front trunnion rivets are shallower than the barrel journal, right? They're in deeper. This tells you that something that was larger diametrically than the barrel was there when the rivet was set. Most likely a proper rivet setting tool. These rivets are barrel diameter.
Yep.
They are exactly in the barrel cavity. There is no way that these were not bucked against the barrel.
Yeah.
That, and then back here, one done the normal way, one done the new way, right?
Right.
The Nork way. It makes no sense to me, because if you're doing this one,
This one is the easiest, and so what we sort of surmised is this one's pretty easy to get to with a riveting tool.
Right.
The ones back here are like hilariously easy. You can set these almost by hand or with pliers even. They're so easy, not hard to get leverage on. The ones in the middle are really hard to get leverage on. It's tricky to get a tool in there just right. And you can set these even with like converted bolt cutters or whatever. Getting these with converted bolt cutters is kind of
you have to use a special one. Yeah.
right. You need like very different looking jaws, and I guess it wouldn't surprise me that the North Koreans tested without these rivets. Wouldn't surprise me if they just said, do we need 6? And probably they found that you didn't, because people have built AKs specifically with just the front 2 and the rear 2 just to see how well it holds up, and they hold up, right? They're technically these 2 are surplusage in the grand scheme of things. But those 2 being bucked against the barrel will limit their hold. Them being done that way, I'm sort of 2 minds. I don't hate the fact that they include them as a surplusage, but then doing them wrong, I wonder... Why wouldn't you just leave it out?
It adds a new setup is the problem. Right. So you're doing 4 rivets on the trunnion without a barrel. Then you are installing and populating your barrel and doing another rivet.
Unless they're installing barrels into... No, because they couldn't be, right? Because that's going into the trunnion with those 4.
Unless they did and there's no way they did it this way, but the only way I can think of is if their barrel to trunnion fit was fairly loose. Yeah. And then they would set headspace and then hit the rivets to then drill, which would be cockamamie.
Yeah.
But this is us trying to But think about your setups. You've got a guy who's working with this in the steel clamshell, going clunk 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 clunk, and then he's like, I don't wanna. And he hands it off to the guy who does the barrel, and he does the barrel, and he clocks everything and times everything, not well, mind you. And then he goes, all right, next guy. And his whole job, this guy's life is going...
Squish it against the barrel.
Why didn't guy number 1 do that? It does... If you're an AK historian of the Asian contract variety, please tell me.
Why'd they do that?
Yeah, why did they do that? It's bizarre because this gun is just such an enigmatic mix of good ideas and what the fuck is wrong with you? And
we'll include pictures just to show you guys. There's no chance that these rivets weren't bucked against the barrel or something that was like identical to barrel shape, unless something like really really goofy happened where these rivets were like extra long and they squished them way
so
out in the middle of the trunnion, and then they ground them down for the barrel to clear them, or had the barrel swage them off. But
well, there's no way the barrel swaged them off because they're perfectly circular. There would be a scar from that,
you'd think.
Well, anyway, we've beat that down enough, but let's get more into this gun. And of course, the one unfortunate thing is, You know, we had to add enough American parts to whatever, but we tried to keep it as good as possible, where everything that matters is original. This dust cover is a great place to start.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with it manufacturing wise, but you can see the condition of these kits. It's not great. And especially you can see here, those marks were there before the rebuild.
Yep.
So this gun was dropped and then proceeded to have its barrel hammering, or its bolt carrier hammering at the inside of the trunnion.
Or the dust cover, right?
Dust cover.
The dents on the dust
yeah.
cover were relieved by the bolt carrier.
Yeah, which left a very funny shape. And that's just something. The other thing is the length of this dust cover
Yep.
was very short.
Yep.
And it suggests that either there was a non-standard receiver length, because we did have to put, if you look here, we had to push this further than is standard to get it to set at all. If we pushed it to the standard relationship where these kind of line up, it was just barely hanging on. So either the receiver length was not standard, or perhaps there was an incredible amount of variance in where the rear trunnion was put in. I don't know about that. Suffice to say, that's 1 point of goofiness already on the first part we take off.
The recoil spring is like surprisingly standard looking. It's
And
held together
modernized.
the same way. Yeah.
Yeah, it is the modernized design with the two loops, right? So they had some decent technical data at the time, and they went with the improved recoil spring design. It doesn't have, the one thing it doesn't have that started to exist at this time is a geometry on the tail that would kind of keep the dust cover down. It's two straight lines. Funny shape. Bolt carrier.
There's a lot that can be said here.
Yeah, that's some machining.
It's interestingly got a lightning cut. I think I've seen other carriers that have shown up with this,
Right.
but it's not standard AKM pattern to have
Yeah.
that pocket milled there.
Yep.
The cam lug looks like it was done by a die grinder.
Yeah.
It wasn't done by die grinder. It was done by
Right.
milling machines. It was just done by a milling machine that wasn't happy.
It had like one remaining tooth.
This bolt carrier retains original kerf, right, on these
Yeah.
parts, right? There's stuff that wasn't deburred on these parts that
from when it was manufactured originally.
didn't need to be deburred, but they clearly weren't sandblasted or tumbled either. Clearly because of all the tool marks. But right, there's little bits of debris still attached to it that weren't fully machined away.
A non-parallel cut for the sear trip.
Yep.
Just a lot of, and then like the through bore on this, which granted is smooth that no, it's not. That would catch the shit out of a fingernail if you could fit one in there. That's an important part. Machined it like shit.
Yep.
And is that? I mean, did that just wind up polished, or is that lined?
It's supposed to be chrome lined.
Yeah, that's so machined it like pure dog shit. That looks
chrome
chrome lined.
lined to me.
I didn't want to say it, but like the machine like pure dog shit, then chrome lined the through bore, which again, cool. What are you doing? Honestly, very high quality interface at the front.
It's got a different profile charging handle.
Completely different, completely unique. Completely unique.
And that is a as forged feature on sort of regular AKs. So, if this was a forging or a casting, I can't tell, but it looks like it's maybe nice enough. If it was cast, it's a really nice casting.
Yeah.
So potentially a forging. I guess this sort
Appears
of tells
to be.
you.
I don't see any tool marks.
I guess this sort of tells you that this may have been their own, forging. Right. This may have been something they come up with on their own because it doesn't share the same charging. It's not like they bought the forging tools from Russia or acquired them from Russia because they got a different charging handle on there.
They chrome lined the inside of the recoil spring guide.
I need a light just to see that.
It's got that step that the other parts do.
That I'm not sure. That looks more like bare metal. But I would have swore that there's some comm block kits that had
No,
chrome lining on the inside of there.
The only reason I say that is because of the different right at the edge of the hole.
Yeah,
Right.
like it's abrupt and doesn't look like it's just a transition to bare metal.
Yeah. So possible unknown. But overall standard and compatible,
Yep.
which is neat. Bolt head.
Not a ton to say.
No, I was going to say, aside from overall rough
Yeah,
manufacturing.
rough manufacturing. There is a little bit, and again, we don't know what sort of life these guns live besides
Right.
the fact that they weren't treated great. There's a little bit of deformation on the peak of the cam lug where it sort of sees an awful lot of force. Tiny bit of deformation there. The locking lugs are in great shape, and you can see we did mark them for an engagement, right? Because this bolt was not matching to this trunnion, and given the overall quality of the gun,
Yeah, we were like,
we put the bolt in there and was like, it doesn't, of course, lug engagement refers to, because it's got two lugs and they're helical, one lug from one gun, one bolt from one gun may touch both lugs in one trunnion, but not in another.
Right.
And if it doesn't touch on both lugs, you hope that what happens is, headspace opens up as the bolt settles to touch both lugs, and you hope that it does that before it breaks one lug off, since all of the locking force is now on one lug, which it wasn't designed to do.
right.
So we were very concerned with this one. We assembled it after headspacing it as tight as we could. There was contact on both lugs. It wasn't the most beautiful contact, but now after a day of shooting it, you can see
Yep. It's worn in nice.
very nice engagement where it's all the way across the lug as high as it should be. I guess I've seen more even, but that's that's nothing to complain about for a bolt that's not only non-matching, but has been run in at this point.
Been run in, and again was originally made by who it was made by.
Right.
You cannot trust even the same factory to have cut the same helix
Yep.
on two different bolts.
And in fact, there's videos of Polish-made AKs where they're taking hand files to bolts to try and correct engagement, which is like, people who understand sit there and watch that and scream, but
Yeah.
I guess their guns aren't blowing up, and maybe they're just correcting minor interferences, but it's still
I see the
terrifying.
way they run the anyway. Yeah, it is a little spoopy. I just have so many like Chrome must just be free over there, as I'm wanting to know if they lined the firing pin channel, because it seemed like they just liked lining things that other stuff went into, which would
It
make
does
sense.
not look lined to me.
Okay,
And that would be surprising to see lined.
it would be cool.
It would be cool.
Anyway, so that's that. The fire controls are interesting in that you wind up. You hate the trigger.
Yep.
I feel you wind up with a distinct two-stage.
And I think the first stage is the disconnector punching the top of the hammer.
Yes.
And sometimes those bind up in such a way that the disconnector is trying to push the hammer forward before the hammer is off of the trigger sear, and it just sort of locks the entire system up completely. And I'm assuming this is just as a result of wear, because we made sure the fire control group holes were in the right spot, of course, but also the wear marks were there before of those parts had been beating against each other for a long time.
Right.
And the groove that they'd worn against each other is why it feels like it's binding up sometimes.
I like the way it feels. It is completely unique.
Yep.
It is completely unique. So now we're going to get to another interesting part of this. And it's something often overlooked on these guns. The humble ass tube. Why don't you show us this ass tube?
So traditionally, the way these gas tubes are made is they're a round piece of steel that has the not trunnions, but they sort of have these features welded onto them that allow it to actually retain the handguard, so it becomes a gas tube and handguard retainer. Unless you're the AMD 65, and then you're just a tube. And I sort of take some offense at calling them gas tubes, because the gas doesn't go through them, the piston does. But their AR-15 equivalent is the gas tube. That term has become extremely pervasive for what this thing is.
Yeah, there is no there is no expanding gases that happen in this.
Right.
Yeah.
However, the North Koreans decided to do it differently. This is actually a flat piece of steel. Instead of it being a formed tube, it's a flat that's then rolled and then pinch welded. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Probably some more under there. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, and then probably some more under there. So at least 34 spot welds. You just go, dip, 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 and probably just an electrode down the middle inside, and just go dip, 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 all the way along the thing, which is just a hilarious way to make this.
It is a very fun way to make it.
When it comes to sheet metal fabrication, the AK's gas tube, piston tube is actually rather advanced. It is a complex part to make. in terms of the sheet metal fabrication required. And you can see that not all of these kits have this style of tube. So certain ones do. And I think that this is probably just a testament to they didn't have that level of sheet metal manufacturing expertise. And so what they went with is a rolled up tube that they spot welded and then spot welded the
normal spot welding parts.
Right,
too.
the extra features onto it that allow it to actually retain your upper hand guard.
Yep. Which I just thought that was fascinating.
It's
and so
very...
I've examined 4 of these.
And I've talked to people on the internet that have seen 3 others, and a couple of them were this way. But I guess we should have mentioned earlier, all of them had their had at least those 2 middle rivets in the trunnions that were bucked against.
Yeah, they were all of the middle rivets were bucked against the trunnion, but only a couple had this gas tube. So I don't know if it's an early feature or that complicated press is not working feature, right? But it is something one way or the other. Next up, we have a couple more interesting things around the barrel. Let's expose the barrel. This is not AKM standard at all.
Yep, we are missing 2 very important things. There's normally a keyway slot on this side and a keyway slot on the other side that actually that line up with pegs on the handguard retainer to keep the handguard retainer from rotating.
Right.
However, with this handguard retainer, even whenever we throw it into place and then flip the lever, it wiggles side to side hilariously.
It is free to do as it will.
When the handguard is installed, that wiggle goes pretty much all the way away, which is kind of impressive, and then sort of gets you to, again, for the simplifications on this gun, I think that might not be a bad one, because the handguard retainer cuts on an AK barrel are kind of annoying to have to do yourself.
They're very small features that can require square edges. That said, this is not an innovation of this gun.
Yep.
This is a holdover from the AK-47, which worked in much the same way. I don't know how it worked.
They did start out making milled guns.
They did start out making essentially a Type 3 version. What this seems to me, and what's really interesting about this, let me get to that after we explore the rest of the features. This front sling retainer on an AKM,
it's a part of the
it's a part of the gas.
Right.
It's a part of
this handguard retainer.
It's a part of this handguard retainer. On the AKM, you just have a gas block, but with this, they've opted to include a 2-dimensional shape. That is also seen on some early AKs and most Chinese AKs and Yugo AKs, I believe. Why?
I guess, it keeps your manufacture of this, which has typically been a cast component, typically keeps that a little bit cheaper, a little bit simpler, right? Not having that lug off the side of it.
Yes.
Meanwhile, you could, this is thin enough and doesn't have to be very strong steel. You could probably just punch those out.
Yep. So that's a thing. It could be that their vacuum casting equipment didn't like, the little void there. It is a complicating shape. Or it could also be, nope. I was about to say, it could also be that they wanted to punch this part, but it is not.
That would be hard.
This is something that winds up being either cast or machined. As you can see here, there's another shape up top there. So, it's unique asterisk. It's unique on a gun in this configuration. The front sight is fairly standard, except we have just a different series of cuts. The hole size just not consistent. Interestingly, on most AKMs, the pin that this rear pin just holds the front sight base to the barrel. This front pin holds it to the barrel, but is usually offset up and also retains your muzzle device retainer, for lack of a better word. On this gun, they're directly in line.
Yep.
And they were on the other ones we examined, which I don't have a problem with. I think that's a much simpler way of doing it. Make a slight modification to your plunger. Actually, you don't have to, because it winds up being further down. And that's that. The other modifications here, though, were that these are hilariously not parallel.
And at best, the best we can figure is they probably didn't have the same series of drilling jigs and fixtures, they probably may not have even had a complete assembly line where they just made parts and then swapped their factory over to make another part, and then swapped their factory over to make another part, where they didn't have a dedicated line for making these. In the absence of dedicated jigs, it's really hard to get things like high degrees of parallelism, hard to do. High degrees of perpendicularity, it's hard to do. It's easy to get parts that are close with generic tooling, but it's hard to get stuff that's perfect. So there's maybe like a tenth of a degree of misalignment for the hole that goes through the middle of the sight block. The sight block to itself is relatively true, but the hole that goes down the middle of it isn't. So when you look straight from above, it may be slight enough that the camera can't pick it up, but as best, as we were going there and measuring stuff, if we assume that the barrel is true, right? The barrel is true and straight. The hole drilled through it was drilled like this, which makes the entire thing sit like that. Yeah. Which is a little funny.
And additionally, each of these walls were different thicknesses.
Yep.
Which it's just interesting. It's not structurally or mechanically significant. But the most interesting one to me is that the hole for the barrel and the hole for the piston to ride into in the gas block are not concentric with the outside of the block at all. Like there's the hole. So basically, you've got your block, the hole the piston goes into, you'd expect it to go right into the center. It's actually more like this.
Yep.
Which is interesting, and it winds up, it means that if you built the gun and like paralleled the shit out of the parts, it would not ride well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
your piston would hang up. If all of your stuff was perfectly aligned, your piston would hang up.
So there's videos showing inside of Zastava's factory where they show how they build AKs, right? And it's all hydraulic. Right, it's all hydraulic assembly presses where the components are machined on computer numerical stuff, so that all of the components they're both parallel where they should be and perpendicular where they should be. So you can put all of the parts onto a jig, and then it just has a hydraulic ram put them to the right spot on the barrel. Very, very fast to build guns that way. If you built this gun that way, it would not go together.
Yeah, it just would
not work.
Yep.
And it's because these parts are machined out of whack enough, they kind of have to be put together by hand. Because you can't just put stuff on straight and assume it'll fit. Because things that look like they should be parallel, or things that look like they should be perpendicular, or things that should actually be that way, just aren't.
Right. Additionally, so that's pretty much all there is on the barrel. Additionally, there's this unique, of course I had this made, there's this unique spot weld in the middle of the little happy face.
Yep.
So they have more spot welds overall for the rails. For the bolt guide rails. That's an interesting little gimmick. Trigger, bizarre shape.
Yes.
Like almost
it's not a regular shape.
Almost looks hand formed. But they are consistently irregular, so probably not. It's probably that they made a casting and somebody went and freestyled a little bit. Yep. But it's funny because you see the arc of the trigger is way higher than the trigger guard. Trigger guard is a little bit thicker than is usual. That the really interesting thing here is the grip. Let me pull this off, or should I not?
You can try.
Okay.
The one thing we've noticed across the grip screws for all of these is they bend very easily, and a lot of them we found have been broken off.
Yep.
And I think that's because the grip screw itself was made out of some rather soft metal. So in regular use of the gun, right, the grip screw is what keeps the grip from twisting, tilting front back. But then if the screw is weak, it will bend and then let the grip come loose. And then as it continues to wiggle and the screw continues to bend.
Here. Also, those of you who've disassembled AKs are probably thinking, why is that going in so deep? Well, because this does not work in the normal way at all.
Yep. It's more similar to the AMD 65 style screws where it's all the way up in the top of the grip, but not quite all the way on this. It is its unique thing.
So there's our screw, which is just its own thing, right? And is also hilariously cattywampus.
Yeah.
We had to steal one from another kit because this one actually had it broken off in the center. And there's that hole drilled in the middle. It might have something to do. Yeah, but it's overall.
If I had to guess, my guess was because on the kit where it looked like it was broken off, it looked like this had been staked. So it may have been a thing where they knew that these were horrible material and they knew they were going to bend. But you know how they keep them from falling out?
Yeah. Mushroom the head of the screw, which at that point, why didn't you just rip it? Anyway.
Weld it in.
This pistol grip, at first blush, you'll think, oh, that's type 3. It's not. This is completely unique. Yeah. Completely unique. Small. Hilariously small. People talk about AK grips being too small. This is too small. I'm pinching my meat right now. Odd shape, generally just wrong. The cutouts are also unique because the retainer is unique. And what's interesting is that the receiver blanks that get made for these have every type of fixturing for the...
Right, it still has the square hole for if in the event you put the the square hole grip lug in there, which wouldn't be a bad idea, if you weren't trying to go for some amount of correctness. This is a harder system to install, and what with this awful grip screw, it's actually not good.
It's not good. But yeah, so you have two ways of installing it. You can do it the normal way and use a normal
square lug system.
But of course, we wanted to go with the right way. And this is another piece that's just completely weird. It was hilariously bent.
Soft steel, right?
So
Very soft steel.
It was hilariously bent, and it was hilariously easy to unbend. And of course, that is not centered to anything. No. There's just a hole in it. It's fascinating. It's just fascinating.
Right, like every corner they could get away with cutting was cut.
Well, and then we get to the next piece. These are milled.
Yes.
Which did happen in other countries. Some early Romanian underfolders had milled arms, right? But this is a stupid.
It's really heavy. It's much heavier than the stamped versions because it's substantially thicker.
Right.
And probably again it was their immaturity of sheet metal fabrication that led them to of all the complex machinings, it's done here instead of anywhere else.
We'll do 35 pinch welds, but we're not figuring out how to do a U channel. But the fun thing about that screw that we did notice while shooting, the screw was tight.
Yep.
And the grip became loose.
Yep. And it's not because the screw rotated, it's because the screw bent.
Very good. I think that just about covers it, right? Or is there something we're missing?
I guess as far as the stock goes, there's minor differences in the way the underfolder works. Usually there's a vertical peg that sort of acts as the anti-rotation system for the axle itself. Instead of the peg being vertical, it's horizontal in this, which I think actually may make it a little bit easier to assemble. There's just slight differences in the way all of the parts, they fit together in the same way, but slight differences in the way they work that would potentially make them incompatible. And then the reinforcement in the receiver that the sort of underfolder holds onto is different, right? It's a different weldment that's in this receiver. It's welded in a different way, and then it's also shaped a different way. Mm-hmm. And then as a result of that, I think the actual the trunnion itself is a different part, right? Because we've got a 5mm rivet there, and a 4mm rivet there.
And 5mm rivets did not exist in AKs.
and they're both through holes. So those are both sort of custom or different or unique to this sort of build rivets, which is certainly an interesting artifact.
Yep, for sure. All right, well, I'll put it together, and then we'll talk about shooting it.
Yep.
So you've heard much about the trigger on this thing. And this is the result of that slightly short top cover. Which is great. I'll remedy that later by bending things.
Right. Well, and I think a lot of that shortness on the top cover probably has to do with the fact that it was dropped, dented, and then shot to get the dent out. But now it's not straight on the other side, and it's not straight on this side. It's sort of bowed out, which is going to bring the front of it is going to come backwards as the sides of it bend out.
I choose to believe that, given the length, we're talking about 3mm. I choose to believe that their receiver was a couple millimeters shorter. That's what I choose to believe. One other interesting thing is the large part of the gas block was drilled 3.5mm. Mm-hmm. That's inconsistent among different guns.
A lot of AKM stuff though is 4mm through hole.
Yeah. So that means if the Norks did as is normal and the actual gas port size is smaller than the through hole size in the gas block, they were not hilariously overgassed.
Yep.
But even if they did, even if they did drill it 3.5.
3.5 is 4 is typical to find in a lot of
Yep.
Eastern Bloc guns, so 3.5 is at least a little smaller for your gas port size.
So this means that these guns were closer to being properly gassed,
Yep.
and thus these were not beating themselves to death the way you would see a Yugo do it. So I thought that was, again, another inch. It's like, oh, right? Like, this gun is so full of pleasant surprises and also horrifying missteps.
Yeah, and with this one set up for a 3mm gas port size, it just shoots pretty good.
Yeah, we first, dimpled the barrel by driving a 3.5mm into it just for a couple millimeters, and then switched to a 3mm to go the rest of the way through. And it's, slightly overgassed. It bottoms out, but compared to
Right.
like an American AK,
Right.
It's a dream.
Right. We'd built a couple of Russian kits with a 4mm drill port, right? Two spec. It's uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable.
Yeah, I'll never do that again.
That way. And it's funny because that's sort of your cream of the crop AKM build, and this, even with the underfolder compared to a fixed stock, this is much more comfortable to shoot in that regard.
Right. So let's take a look at this trigger. So the first thing we're going to see is that this does behave like a 2-stage. So our first stage is 5 pounds.
Yeah.
And then we break at 6 pounds, 13 ounces.
Which isn't horrible.
It's not horrible. I think what you might not like, because you hated the trigger, I liked the trigger. Let's see if it's consistent.
Reset it. Yeah, there you go.
That must be doing something.
I,
Or not. Wait, let's.
That's the way this thing has worked for me.
All right, hold on.
Sometimes it's like, it never feels AK-ish, right? Because the disconnector touches the hammer. It doesn't feel like an AK ever to me. Because you usually have that long roll with no definite walls. And this thing's got at least 2. Yeah.
What's going on?
That's what this gun does for me.
Oh,
Yep. There you go. That's how this gun has been for me. And
this is the first time I have felt it.
I can't figure out if it's where you placed your finger on the trigger or what, but I was trying to place it different places and I couldn't figure the thing out.
Jesus.
Yeah.
What is going on?
It's doing to you what it's done to me. That sometimes I'm pulling on this thing with what feels like 15 to 20 pounds, but just to get it to go. And like it'll go. It's just
Okay, yeah, that's the first time I've seen it.
Very jinky about it.
Oh, that's wild. Could it be a location thing, because this is having to be the center of that insane arc? Yeah, it's not gonna do it. Okay, I get it. I get your complaint.
Yep.
I guess the gun just likes my finger. Yeah, it's gonna overload. Let's try with a solid disconnect, maybe?
Of course, let me try higher.
Let's try with a solid disconnect, because that felt normal. Of
course,
it doesn't like the way this is pulling on it.
To the finger, right? And if we cock it over to one side, still goes. Cock it over to the other side, still goes. It's just heavy. Of course, we had been trying it on that side of the gun. Try it on this side of the gun. So with the arm pulling the other direction relative.
Yeah. £6 8 ounces.
Interesting.
It's a handedness thing.
Now,
well, hold on, let me do it again.
Do it again, because I want to look inside at the trigger hooks, because the engagement on the trigger hooks against the hammer was not even.
Bro, 6 pounds 10 ounces that time. I pulled it a little further. Let me do it one more time.
When it comes to the fire control group components, right, we went through the usual install steps, right, with the freshly drilled holes to make sure every part moves freely, independently the way it's supposed to. It's handedness.
It's handedness. And so, again, one little piece of lore. We're both left-handed. I insist on shooting right-handed. He is principally left-handed. I am a weak-willed turncoat. Yeah, that one was a little higher, but it's so it being pulled this way, the way I was shooting it, it was crisp and actually like not clean, but and then it, yeah, that sucks.
And the trigger's in there and is capable of moving freely. And I did the checks, right, especially coming from the printed AK world. That's just something I do intrinsically is make sure it doesn't bind up, because with the printed receivers, right, it has more of a tendency to do so just because everything's thicker in there. But just to sort of show it, the trigger does not bind up. The trigger moves completely freely. The disconnector moves completely freely. There isn't any undue resistance in the hammer. The hammer hitting the trigger hooks to reset is funky. The hammer hitting the disconnector to reset is funky. But all of the holes are in the correct spot. The regular fire control group in here moves smoothly. It just comes down to how wonky things really are here. And of course, the disconnector does touch the hammer. That may be a part of it that starts causing it to bind up funny. But you can also sort of see the left hook on the hammer is the only one touching the hammer, or the left hook on the trigger is the only one touching the hammer. The right hook, which is sometimes used and referred to as a backup hook, right? It's only there for backup, but usually it touches. This one only has one touching, and for whatever reason, when I pull it left-handed, it just really doesn't want to go. And it may just come down to slop in the way the holes are laid out, and maybe the holes were laid out wrong on this gun originally, right? Further apart, and that's what allowed it to work.
Fascinating.
So it's
fascinating. That solves a really weird discrepancy we had. Right. He was just dog cussing the trigger, and I'm like, okay.
And I guess it's just like a 1 in a million way that these parts fit together. And of course, the sear surfaces on these triggers was bad, and I had to polish them up to get them to release and catch and reset consistently. But it really is just an interesting setup. And I suppose goes to show you, sear surfaces that have ruts and pits in them may behave in interesting and unexpected
behave as
manners.
If they have ruts and pits in them.
Yes.
Ah! So that's it. Now, overall shooting impressions. I am excited to tell you guys why this gun disappointed me. Yep. What was your overall opinion? I was excited to get it built. As we were building it, I got more and more disappointed because I expected it to be like irredeemably bad. And then sort of the takeaway impression was like, this is, it's bad in a different way than a lot of bad AKs, right? But the ways that it was bad different wasn't like bad different, right? There was still, still like, I was expecting the lug engagement to just be abysmal. Right. I was expecting the trunnion to have, like, try cracking whenever we're pressing a barrel into it, but the gun goes together and the gun runs fine. Yep. And that sort of disappointed me because I wanted this thing to just be a basket case. Right. And it wasn't that bad. I wanted it to do one of two things. I either wanted it to be good, which I knew it wasn't. This is impossible, right? Or so bad, right? So bad that, like, it was, like you said, a basket case. And the disappointing result is that even the North Koreans could only produce a gun slightly better than American-made AKs. Right. Like, after all that, this gun shoots, goes together, and is built about 10% better than an American AK. And that is just a disappointment. Yeah. I wanted it to be below them, right? Like, I wanted to have found the bottom of the barrel, and I think we might have found that with another kit we have, but which is not American, by the way. It's also not intended to be a gun, but that's another thing. It's just the problem with the Nork AK is that it's just fine. Yep. That's the problem with it. It needs care and attention to be put together correctly, because if you put it together according to a procedural process, there's probably going to be a decent percentage of these guns that just don't go together. Yeah. Right? The piston is going to bind horribly in the tube, or the tube's going to be too rattly loose, or these guns can't just be put together to a fixed datum because these parts were
seems like they weren't made in a even if even pre CNC, right? They didn't have dedicated assembly lines that stayed together for very long to make these parts,
Right.
because these parts have variance in them that's just otherwise totally inexcusable, unless it's basically craft production plus plus.
Yep. But yeah, so we shot it a lot and we enjoyed it.
Yep.
That said, it is, even with our greatest efforts to headspace it tight.
Yep.
Even with a great barrel, it is not accurate. No. It is. This is the least accurate AK that I've shot. That said, it was still acceptable. It was perfectly acceptable.
Right. And probably a lot of that comes down to the rear sight doesn't fully. It's close to wanting to return to.
Yeah.
No, that time it didn't.
The
rear sight doesn't want to return to dead center. It does have it. That's an impermissible amount of wobble that should be rejected or fixed and welded up or whatever. But for originality's sake, this is left as it is. But that much wobble shouldn't happen. It should return probably more strongly to zero for the amount of wobble it does have. Also, this isn't straight to that. This isn't straight to itself. This isn't straight to its drum, which means none of this gets to be straight to the barrel. None of this gets to be straight to the receiver. We got it as close as we could, but it's bottomed out against the trunnion. We have to grind the trunnion for clearance in order to actually get this straight relative to the gun. And while we did get the front sight centered, and we made it so when the post is centered, it's actually centered in the notch. It's pretty much hitting dead on, which is great, but the post isn't centered to the barrel. The drum isn't centered to the sight. The post is slightly concentric relative to the drum, so your windage changes. Your windage changes as you screw the thing in and out. Oh, also it's bent. So nothing here is straight. So when it comes to having things be accurate, consistency is important. And especially for iron sights, optical, visual, repeatable alignment is important, and a lot of that's in your head.
It is covered in optical illusions.
Yes,
because of all of these weird parallels. It will throw you.
If
off.
your eye wants the dust cover to be straight, good luck. AK people need to train themselves not to do that, because it's never gonna happen.
Right.
You can't trust that the top of this is actually square, because it's not. Because again, the notch is not square to the top of the blade. So you have to ignore that. Just look at the sides of the notch, and then maybe look at the post, which isn't parallel to the sides of the notch. And then have a good time. Which we were making hits. Right. And again, even with that being utterly jacked. Completely screwed up.
Serviceable.
Hits on person-sized targets at 100 yards, no problem. Didn't have to think about it.
No, didn't have to think about it at all. And also, the general shooting experience is different enough from an ordinary AKM that I would say it's worth it. And I don't know if that's AK cork sniffery, right? But I feel that shooting this gun is a different enough experience.
Everything feels, we had talked about it when we were shooting, that this gun sort of epitomizes what the Grand Boomer says the AK is like. Where it feels like it was made by peasant people for peasant people to shoot other peasant people. And the way the bolt feels as you rack it, like even in a good receiver, right, that's got straight rails, because Lord knows what this original receiver looked like, because that's one of the more complicated parts of the AK, is getting the receiver right. And we have a receiver that was made by robots, and at least the blank for it was made by robots, American robots, the good ones. But even with a receiver that's good and pinholes that are in the right spot, the bolt carrier feels like it's grinding, it's dragging, it feels like there's sand in the action when it's perfectly clean. It hangs up on the hammer hilariously.
It moves in fits and starts, and as you cock it, you feel every piece of geometry that it interfaces with. So that's really well said. This gun, if you're used to shooting AKs, should be a treat for you, because you will get to feel like what old people tell you AKs feel like.
Like old people say that's how the Chinese AKs feel like. It's not true.
It's not true. But it also shoots like what they say it shoots like. It's not very accurate.
It's really hard to shoot. Well,
it's hard to shoot very accurately.
It's hard to shoot to the potential of the
barrel.
The trunnions in there dead tight. The barrel's in there dead tight. The barrel populants are on there, so they're not moving.
Right.
It's just that and that. Nothing's parallel. Nothing's perpendicular.
So I think they're. I'm very glad.
I think it is very cool. I guess the other way to look at it is, if we're to expand our AK horizons to not things that aren't AKs, that we start including them. Like on the one end of the spectrum, you have the Swiss AK not in AKs, right? Your 550 or whatever. This is the polar opposite end of and we're excluding everything that's like complete junk, right? Like the unsafe stuff and the blowy uppy stuff, right? So exclude that. We're only looking at AKs that purportedly work.
Right.
This is the opposite end of the spectrum of the 550 because I don't care for the 550, but I can't deny it's an AK that's on roller bearings and glass and
It's
smooth,
hilariously
feels
smooth,
oiled when it's not.
Yeah.
And then this is the it feels like they're sanding it when it's not.
Yeah, it's perfectly cleaned and greased, and it feels like they're sanded.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I feel like we've said enough about it. Let us know your thoughts.
Good luck buying one of these kits for an affordable price anymore, ever again. people are paying like $1,500 now for things like this. It's tough, but I don't know that I think it's worth anywhere close to that. But for what they were originally worth, it's a really interesting experience.
I am glad that I picked some up when I did.
I guess one thing that we sort of mused about as we were building it is that the couple of these that we had seen put together, people had paid $400-ish for the kits, and then sent them to a builder who charged them $3,000 to put it together, and I'm like,
retarded. Yeah, it's really.
You paid $3,000 for the worst. This. I wish the kits were in larger supply because previously it was AMD 65s at one point in time.
Yeah, you'd like this to be the cheap one. This would be great to be the cheap one.
Yes, because you could just shit them together, nail builds, whatever, dude. Just buck it against the barrel because that's what this kit deserves. It's what it deserves, right? Nothing else was made right here, and it felt bad, us polishing stuff up and dimpling things.
Oh my god, it felt so weird how because
is that straight enough? Is that straight enough? And go back and press it off, and we'll get it right.
We can't help ourselves whenever we do an AK. We're like, oh, are you sure? Well, hold on. And then it's like, well, we have to polish this, and we have to, and because we love them, and building them is a labor of love. And it's like, and I remember at one point I saw myself and I had put a mirror sheen on a journal, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? But yeah, no, that's a brilliant way to put it. And yeah, I hope if I'm sure if you saw these around, you were curious to see how they ran, and I hope that this will answer those questions.
This will make you think something.
Yep. And so we
know what that will be.
Plenty of shooting footage, and I hope you enjoy it, and we will see you guys next time.
See if we can get this thing sighted in.
Yeah, put her on paper, boss. Put her on paper. I got you. Oh, you're not going to try it?
No, maybe once we actually know where it's hitting. Nice, great. Yeah, there you go.
Good.
Yeah, that's how it's supposed to be. All right, we're just partway resting on the magazine. This is going to be a hoot. Wonderful trigger, by the way. Wonderful trigger, by the way. All right, that trigger did not want to break. I have no idea where that went.
You are about...
On paper?
You are on paper. You are about 8 inches left, 3 inches low.
Okay. Try one more with that same hold, but hopefully the trigger works this time. That trigger broke at a totally different spot.
And I don't know where that went.
Try it again. I didn't pull that one, so far as I can tell.
Well, now the camera's not cooperating with me. Yep, that was same spot horizontally, lower.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, and so you pulled it high. So try holding on the right side of the target.
All right.
The first one that you pulled high. So hold on that right side of the target.
God, this trigger is not good.
Okay, yeah, you're about 4 inches left and 10 inches low.
All right. Try another one there.
Okay, that was 2 inches right, 4 inches low.
Okay. So 4 inches low before? I don't remember. Try another one. I'm more or less a center line hold, but on the right.
Okay. Similar elevation. Go ahead and throw another. Throw another. We have a somewhat hilarious horizontal string.
Interesting. That's probably part of that's because I'm resting off of a magazine with a trigger that just not great, but
I like the trigger.
yeah.
Just throw another.
All right.
Okay, a pattern is starting to develop.
Okay.
Here, let me take a couple.
Interesting.
Did you see where it went?
No, I'll try looking better. All right, I saw that one. It was a little high, a little right. Maybe 2 inches high, 3 or 2 high, 2 right. That was pretty close to middle. Pretty much dead on for you. Maybe 3 inches, 4 inches left. I didn't see where that went. Just low, inch or 2 low. 4 inches right. 6 inches right. 3 right. 2 left.
It's doing the same thing as it did for you. It's a hilarious horizontal spread. I did not change my hold at all. I'm holding in between. I'm holding on the white,
Yep.
in between the two, dead center. So
I think that a lot of that I think comes down to that trigger because it does not break consistently.
I do not feel the same way you do about it.
That's weird.
I like the trigger. I feel like, here, watch. It's gonna break now if I pull any further. Yep. It goes off exactly when I think it's gonna go off.
It feels like it crunches before it goes for me. I don't know.
I feel the crunch after, but here, let's stand up with it. It's rock and lock.
Yeah. Well, that rivet it will still catch on.
Yeah. Nice.
Put one in there.
So you want to do 10, then I'll do 10?
Sure.
Yep.
All right, yeah, we're going for the middle one.
See, and I was holding, to the right extreme of it.
Yeah.
You're pepper in the middle. I don't know.
Not bad. If you're not thinking about it as much, it is easier to shoot because I can just pull straight through the whole trigger.
It's really interesting to me. I actually like the trigger. I mean, no, like is the wrong word. I don't hate it. You know what it is? This thing shoots and feels like people say AKs shoot and feel like. It's, despite the fact that we headspaced it very tight.
Yep.
Despite the fact that really was built nicer than it should have been, it still is not accurate.
Everything about it's just like crunchy and
Yeah, kludgy and slow, sloppy.
Right.
And it feels that way when you shoot it. You feel all of the crunch factor severely. And on the target, it's one of those things where, yeah, it's hitting the man very consistently at 100 yards. And that's it.
Yeah.
And that's it. And this is like, the AK, the Draco is like at least 4 times as accurate.
Yeah.
As this thing is.
The least accurate Draco is 4 times more accurate than the most accurate that.
Yeah. I'm a little surprised. I kind of thought that the way it was built with a good quality barrel, very tight headspace,
Well, the front sight post being bent, and then the barrel populants all being cattywampus, like nothing on that gun is square. So we built it as close to square.
Of the builder. It's
Right.
built as square as it could be.
Right.
And the actual the way the ramp is cut is off.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, the ramp isn't straight. So if you give yourself a sight picture with the thing, hopefully that comes across. The rear block we got as straight as we can without machining things to modify the parts to make it straight. So it's that's as straight as it could have ever been built from the factory.
Right.
And then the front side is in a similar way. Where I don't know if the cross pin hole isn't straight.
And then the gas block, the hole was drilled hilariously eccentric.
Yeah, it's like the gas port hole, so the hole that connects the volume expansion chamber and the gas block down to the barrel, it wasn't straight. It was sort of off to the side.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I think that's the best way to put it. Is that this is what your grandpa thinks an AK shoots like.
Yep.
Oh, and this is also a cool feature. If you're not thinking,
if you're not thinking just right, putting folding the stock up touches the selector.
Yeah. So that's cool.
All right, Mr. Ivan came up with a challenge.
Yeah.
He's a challenging man.
So the challenge that I thought of is this AK was probably intended to be shot without the stock deployed at all. And so we're going to try and hit a can with it jacked up, so jacked up.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely not designed to shoot with that deployed. But so we're gonna try to hit the can, basically. What were you saying?
So we'll try and hit a can, but we have to have the gun with the stock folded. And we're not allowed to cheek pistol it, so we're not allowed to try and do one of these numbers. It's gotta be off your body.
And so the challenge is who can hit the can with the minimum number of choo-choos.
Yes.
All right.
Which will be an adventure and a treat.
I think it'll be fun. I think we're gonna have a nice time.
That was pretty close. I think it might be just a little low. Yeah, there it is.
3 poops.
I shouldn't have told you what my secret was. It's actually not terrible to shoot that way. There you go. Skimmed them. I don't know if that counts. I saw that bullet in flight. That was cool. The sunlight's just right to see him in flight. There you go. Target style.
I think that one might not have had anything in it.
The way it slid made me think it does. There you go.
There we go.
It, in fact, was full of stuff. It's now been emptied.
All right, well, let's try the challenge again. Target style.
What do we got left here? Pistol grip's coming loose because of the target style shooting, but that's okay.
Oh,
that's hilariously
that's
loose.
fine. Yeah, no, it's okay.
It's a double challenge because once the pistol grip breaks off, you have to avoid anything funny happening. There
Nice.
You go. It's easy. It's easy. They set that one up just for me.
This is my can. Ah, I overcompensated.
Just to the left.
Shit.
Ooh,
God.
just left again, I think. Same place.
Killing me.
Throw that stock out and show him what he's made of.
No, I'm getting them good.
That was just over. Just under. Oh, he was bleeding after that just under.
Die, fucker.
It's not impossible to shoot like that, and I am surprised.
Yeah.
We'll have to make an underfolder of some sort and do it with the.
Did you see this? It walked out.
Yeah. It does not lock really in the stowed position. It's just sort of tight.
That's I shot under folders before. I I will say that this is the most fun I've had shooting an underfolder. Caveat is this is also probably the only underfolder I've shot that was gassed correctly.
Right. Yeah. This one's not pig rich over gassed.
Yeah. It is rich, but it's not pig rich.
Right.
And so this isn't to say that like this is the high quality top underfolder. It's that AKs can shoot nicely.
Even like the worst AK possible, right, can still shoot pretty good.
Yeah, if it's gassed correctly.
Yep. That's probably the most important thing.
I think that's the lesson here. And you can fight with me all you want in the comments section, please.
Even if the grip's loose, you can still do a target shoot with it.
But I think this explains why we found some of the other kits that were like missing the grip screw and it was snapped off.
Yeah.
I bet you that it actually didn't rotate. I bet you it's stretching.
Yeah.
That's great. That's good. That's good.
We'll need to make a grip screw out of something that's not butter.
Yeah.
They made a grip screw out of rivet.
Yeah, something that's like not dog food. Cool gun.